Thank you.
I added a couple.
Welcome to tonight's meeting. This is the 13th meeting of the Board of Directors of the City of Hot Springs. We'll lead off with Mr. Gary Carnahan, who will lead us in invocation, followed by Director Garcia with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise.
Let's bow our heads in prayer. Dear God, we have much to be thankful for tonight and every day. Mostly we are so grateful that you are our God. You are beyond comparison, nothing to measure against you. And we thank you for being involved in our lives, especially in the details and problems of our lives, and for caring so much for us. Thank you for these directors that give without pay, sacrificially, not just at these meetings, but during the week and with phone calls and supporting citizens and trying to make our city a better place. Thank you for all of our employees that work hard, I know, and for those who are even working tonight in the night shift, for policemen and firemen and water employees and others that may be called out tonight, even because of an emergency in the city. Please keep them safe and bless each one. Bless this meeting tonight, and I pray that it would be very productive and positive and good. Thank you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call this meeting to order. Please call the roll.
Right, sir.
Davidson,
here.
Jones,
Here.
Clark, Williams, Garcia,
Here.
Foley,
Here.
McCabe.
Here. This time we'll have consideration of the approval of the agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to the agenda as presented, or items on the consent agenda you'd like to move to new business?
Mayor, there is one item that we need to ask the board to approve adding to the agenda this evening. It would be ordinance 01826. It's an ordinance amending ordinance number 6216 that established the rates and charges for the Hot Springs municipal water system and for other purposes. There was an error in the schedules that was included in the previous ordinance, and this needs to be considered by the board in order to correct that error.
Very
I would
good.
like
Do we
to
have a
so
motion?
move.
We got a motion by Director Foley,
Second.
seconded by Director Garcia to amend the agenda to include ordinance number 01826.
And Mayor, it being an ordinance, that would end up being the last item under new business this evening.
Correct. I'm going to label that as number 12. Everything else will drop down one number.
Mayor,
Yes, Director Garcia.
move to also reclassify item 8 to new business.
So we have a motion to move number 8 from the consent agenda to new business. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Do we do these individually?
Well,
or-
Mayor, if you'd like, you can consider that one motion,
Okay.
and then if you'd call the roll for
Okay.
approval.
Approval of the agenda as amended.
So
All in
moved.
favor signify by saying
Second.
aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Agenda is approved. At this time, we'll consider approval of the minutes of the special call meeting held on June 26th and the regularly
That was
called
the
meeting of.
Agenda
As amended.
as amended.
As amended.
Yeah,
Approval of the agenda as amended.
to get the,
Yeah, what that vote was to amend it.
Oh, to amend, I'm
not-
sorry.
Sure.
Getting ahead of myself. So now we need, since we approved the amendment to the agenda, now we have to approve the agenda as amended.
I so move, Mayor.
Second.
We got a motion and a second to approve the agenda as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Agenda is approved. Thank you, Mr. Spicer, keeping us legal.
a little slow, I was.
Now we'll go to the approval of the minutes of the specially called meeting held on June 26, 2018, and the regularly called meeting of July 3rd, 2018. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to those minutes as presented? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes as presented.
So moved.
Got Director Davidson, seconded by Director Jones. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. Recognition of guests. I'd like to recognize Anthony Whittington. Anthony is our new Parks and Recreation Director. Anthony, you'd like to come forward? Saw Anthony earlier today at a special recognition of a bioswell at the David Watkins Memorial Park.
That's correct. We dedicated the bioswell at David Watkins Park. It helps with flood mitigation that's in that area. If we have big torrential rains, it also filters out debris and pollutants that can get in the park and get into the tunnel that's beside the park. And so it's a great addition to that park. So I'm excited to be the Parks and Trails Director for the city. I've been of course, the urban forester for the last year. My background is in Parks and Rec. My degree is in Parks and Rec management. So I'm excited to be back in Hot Springs. Like I said again a year ago, almost to this day, I was here being introduced as urban forester. But I'm happy and excited to be the Parks and Rec director for the city. So it's great to see you all again. And
Great, welcome
back. Thank you.
Director Garcia has a question
Yes, ma'am.
for you.
I understand, too, that you are a Henderson State University graduate.
Correct.
I just wanted to say go Reddies.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. yes.
Very good. We look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
I have a special guest. Ray Schaefer is going to come and address the board and the public on her project. She entitles it the Whittington White House Project, and she had an open house on some units that are up on the hill behind the house, and they are top notch. I don't know what you want to call it. It's not necessarily a hotel, but rooms for rent, and they're just gorgeous. So, Ree, tell us what you're doing.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. I have the beautiful property at 230 Whittington Avenue, which is right next door to the new addition to ASMSA. It is one of the oldest historic pieces of property here in Hot Springs, and I'm sure many of you have watched this home over the last many years, and I'm very excited to be bringing it back to life. It is a beautiful piece of property with a lot of potential, and I have now renovated the back part of the property, and so I do have 2 beautiful suites that are now open and available as of this coming Friday to be able to be rented out. So we're very excited to have really bring some life to the Whittington corridor because it's so special. What an artistic community. I've redone many properties in Nashville, and so I'm excited to be able to bring some of that expertise to Hot Springs. So I'm excited.
Question. Is that the house just due west of ASMSA?
It is. It's the big white house.
Okay.
Mm-hmm,
I was in that years ago when some of the former people, and it's gorgeous on the,
It's absolutely.
the handwork and all of the woods and everything. It's really beautiful.
100%. It's one of the most unique homes that I've ever seen. Probably one of only a handful in the country that are of that age that are still left untouched. And I have now demoed it and taken out all the plaster and everything, so it's now down to the studs, and we're ready to move forward quickly with getting some new, refurbished everything in there. So we're hoping to use sustainable building techniques like hempcrete, solar, hydrogen, and other concepts like this to really inspire other developers in the downtown corridor to do the same. So please, anyone, I will share my email. I'll make sure that I get that to the mayor and that he can send that to everyone. So if anyone has any questions about the home or wants to take a tour or anything like that, just please reach out to me, and I'll make myself available.
Ree, you're one of these people that fall into the category of, we don't know who's in town and what they're doing. Will you tell the board and the public what do you do in a general sense for your work?
Well, that's a great question. And when I was in Nashville for 16 years and was very involved with Music Row and renovated a few homes in the historic Music Row district where they were trying to tear down a lot of the historic pieces of property there that all of the amazing music was made. I mean, Elvis used to record in basements on Music Row. And so I really felt that it was important for us to keep that part of our heritage in Nashville. I feel the same way about downtown Hot Springs. I believe that this is one of the most interesting and unique small towns in America, and I believe that because it's a part of the national park system, it should really be a crown jewel of an American city. And I think it's just an absolutely fabulous town. The buildings here are so intricate, and so much labor and love were put into those in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. And so I am very interested in preserving any of the history that we can here in town. And so that's what I've been mainly doing for I would say that was the last 5 years of my career in Nashville, although I did a lot of work with the music industry and hope to bring some of that also to Hot Springs in the future. Once we get some entertainment venues, hopefully we'll get something down at the end of the road where the Majestic used to be, and I'm hoping to see Hot Springs really just take it to another level. I think we're like a sleeper city. We're like the Park City of Park City, Utah, but of Arkansas. So I'm excited to see where this town goes.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. This time we'll have the interim city manager's report. Mr. Burrows.
Well, thank you, Mayor, members of the board. I know we've got an audit report forthcoming, so I'll be brief. But Ree gave me a good segue into the topic that I wanted to make the board and the folks at home aware of, and that's the Majestic property. We have received the final decision on the property development decision document. We've received that from ADEQ. It requires certain remedial activities at the site, about 9.5 cubic feet at the laundry portion of the site, which is where the old yellow portion of the building was, the yellow brick building. There's a site there, as well as a bunker, an old fuel bunker that has been determined by ADEQ that it is not part of the remedial process, though we are going to move forward with removing that while we're there. It has been completely cleaned and filled with concrete, but it is in a state that's crumbling on portion of the wall, so we're going to go ahead and take that out. We'll be using city street departments the city street department to be doing that. We'll have to hire an oversight by a licensed environmental professional. So I know Lance is working on that now. So hopefully sometime next week we'll have that in place and we'll begin that remediation. Once that takes place and the report is submitted back to ADEQ, we should receive our approval to move forward with a residential non-hazardous site. So we're very excited about that. This has been a long time coming. So we finally have that decision from the ADEQ and should have that cleaned up next week, and we'll be able to move forward with some public input process for what will be taking place on that site sometime in the future that we can bring back to the board. That'd be it.
That
Thank you, Mayor.
concludes your report. Thank you. At this time, we have Board of Directors announcements for upcoming events. Anybody have an upcoming event they'd like to make the public aware of? Director Garcia.
I just wanted to mention that the police department is taking applications currently for the Citizens Police Academy. It will not start until September, but the applications are available on their website now, or you can stop by the police department to get a hard copy. And anyone interested, I wholly recommend this program. They do an outstanding job, and it provides a lot of insight into what our police officers deal with on a daily basis. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Any other announcements? Hearing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda only has one item tonight, since we moved the other item to new business, and these tend to be of general subject that does not require discussion. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Mayor, I so move.
I got a motion by Director Jones, seconded by Director Foley. All in favor of the consent agenda as presented, indicate by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Consent agenda is approved. Under new business, the first item of new business will be to consider Resolution R-18-100. And I ask the city attorney to read by title.
Resolution R-18-100, a resolution applying for and accepting a grant with the State of Arkansas National Highway Traffic Safety Administration for a one-time file clerk and various supplies, DWI court administration. That concludes your reading, Mayor. If you would entertain a motion second to adopt.
Motion to adopt.
So move.
Director Jones, seconded by Director Garcia. Are we going to have I know this was on the consent, so we didn't necessarily have a staff member.
Mayor, I could probably carry this one. This is the DWI grant that is typically through our district court. I don't believe anyone's here from district court tonight. This is a reduction in the amount of $22,523 compared to the grant that we received last year. This grant is for $74,330. 50% of that would come from a $37,165 grant match out of the probationary fees. This particular grant is to fund one full-time file clerk there at the district court operations, as well as various supplies for the DWI court, drug test supplies, office supplies, and equipment all associated with that particular program. Be glad to answer any of the questions
There's
you may
no
have.
cost to the city on this.
There is no cost to the general fund. It is totally matched through the probationary fees that is collected through the district court.
And that was a question I had that I had received. Just wanted to make sure clear to the public that there was no cost to the city
That is-
general budget.
There is no cost to the general fund. That is correct.
Thank you.
Any questions of Mr. Burrows? I know we did not have this on a sign-up sheet. Anybody in the audience that wanted to speak to this issue? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Davidson,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Garcia,
Aye.
Foley,
Aye.
McCabe.
Aye. Resolution is adopted. This time we'll consider resolution number 018-101 and ask the city attorney to read by title.
Resolution R-18-101, a resolution acknowledging the review of the 2017 Comprehensive Annual Financial Audit Report, CAFR. That concludes your reading, Mayor. If you would entertain a motion second to adopt.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Director Foley, seconded
Second.
by Director Garcia. And Doretha Yates, Director of Finance.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an annual event that we have where we ask the board to acknowledge the receipt of our CAFR, our annual audit, and this is in accordance with state law. And tonight we're going to have a presentation by Gary Welch from our accounting firm, Jordan Rusley, Cronin Keaton. And I wanted to introduce Mr. Welch as well as his other staff, Christina Ellis, Phyllis Trent, and Tom Moore. And so thank them for being here. Thank for them taking care of our audit. We're required to share findings, so I'm excited to say that he doesn't have any findings to share, but he does have a little bit of information for you, so thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, Larry.
Good evening, City Mayor and board members and city officials. This is, as she said, what's commonly called the CAFR, Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. It is 178 pages long. It is very detailed. It is the one document each year that encompasses all of the funds and activity for the City of Hot Springs for the year ended December 31, 2017. And as you see, I've got tonight I will highlight some of the bigger items within the report. And as always, I would invite any board member or city official, if they want to come spend some 2 hours with me, we can go over every page because that's what it would take to understand how it's put together, what it means, etc. But this report for any information is on the city website and is available to anybody that wants to review it. As the first slide, I have several slides that will show you what this is the state law that says annually the board must review the annual audit and approve it as the document for the year 2017. This, as I said, this is the one document that encompasses the whole city. It also reports the activity of the Advertising and Promotion Commission as a component unit of the city. Whenever the city has some control of an entity such as that commission, then you put that commission's activity in a separate column within this report, and it is certainly there. The next slide, there are 4 reports that I am responsible for, our firm is responsible for, and that's on the first page, page 3. This is what we call the independent auditor's report. It is the overall opinion, and what it says is that the financial numbers within this report are fairly stated in all material aspects. Now, the other 3 auditors' reports are on the last 8 pages of the report, and this what this does is say that you have complied with all of the federal, state programs and grants, and you are in compliance with those regulatory requirements. Next, we see the overall position of the city's net position. And as you see in the third column, these positions increased. And this is the first slide here is the governmental funds. And the last line shows a negative net position. Now, you'll recall in prior years, the government accounting rules required all pension liabilities of your APRS and lot fee be recorded within the books of the city. And this impacted the equity of all cities in Arkansas and in nationwide. So that liability, which is actuarially computed liability for your defined benefit pension plans, is for the current liability and all future years' liabilities. Now, the next slide is your business type activities. This is your water, wastewater, sanitation, airport, etc. And these are positive net position numbers, and you will see there that there's an increase of $11,900,000 in assets and $11 million in liabilities. This is primarily due to the Mid-Arkansas Water Alliance contract, where the city acquired access to 23 million gallons of water per day at $9.5 million, and that's for the future expansion. Next, we have the change in capital assets. Again, the governmental funds capital assets decreased $900,000. This is primarily due to not a tremendous amount added, but the depreciation required to be recorded each year reduced those numbers. The business type, water, wastewater, et cetera, sanitation, et cetera, the assets increased $20,800,000. This is due to the ongoing projects and the water contract that I mentioned just a minute ago. Now, the next slide, this is where bonded debt actually went down $2.5 million. That's because there wasn't a lot of bond activity in 2017. There was a wastewater bond that was essentially a refinancing of the 2009 bond for better interest rates. So that's why you've got a reduction in overall bond debt. Next, we have the general fund measurement of required reserve, and this is a requirement by resolution that The city maintained within the general fund a percentage of 16.5% of all operating expenses and transfers. And you remember the general fund transfers a very significant amount. You see 13 million there. That's for the operation of the police and fire department primarily. So the operating expense and transfers is 21. Your required reserve is 3.5. You have a reserve of 5.6, or you're well within the reserve requirement. Next, we have the proprietary funds and the changes in net position. You can see there that 5 out of 7 have a positive increase in net position. This is the operational increase, revenue over expenses. Now, the airport revenue is generally tied to how much federal grant revenue is received in any particular year. This year, there was not a lot of activity in that area, so that's why they're showing a negative. The parking negative is a little odd item also. The parking fund maintains or owns, or however you want to say it, the free parking building off of Central there, and the depreciation factor on that building is what puts that into the negative each year. The pension-related funds, this is your net pension liability at the end of 17 and 16. You did improve that position by $2.2 million. And this is, as I said earlier, this is an annual actuarial computation through the administrative offices of APERS and LOPFI. So this is a annual computation, and that's the result this particular year. Now, a summary of the report, just 5 or 6 items. There's an unmodified, or what we call in the industry, a clean audit opinion. The federal and state grant letters state that you're in compliance with those grant requirements. There were no significant audit findings. Capital assets, as I stated, increased, but also overall debt on those assets is also recorded. The general fund meets the retention requirements, and those last 4 proprietary or business type funds all had increases in net positions. That is a brief overview. As I stated, if you want to spend that time with me, I'll be glad to do it. I want to thank Doretha and the Finance Department. They were helpful and cooperative. And also, the report this year was on time, and you are going for your 25th consecutive GFOA Certificate of Report Excellence, which is a very worthy accomplishment. And the Finance Department needs to be congratulated for that. Yes. It's a very stringent award. It says you are complying on a national level with the way you report your business. Wonderful. Are there any questions at this time?
Hearing none, thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Gary.
Good job.
Yeah, thank the whole team. Great
Anyone
job.
from the public sign up?
No, sir.
No one from the public signed up. Any discussion amongst directors?
I just would like to comment, I did read it, and I know there was a question as to what portions were important to read, but I think the whole thing is important to read because it gives you a really whole picture and a comprehensive understanding of what's going on in the city and how well it is done also. So congratulations, Doretha and your staff. Nice report.
Yes,
Thank you.
And if you want to read a summary, there's what they call a MD&A, Management Discussion and Analysis. It's about 10 pages long in the front section of the report. And what that does is summarizes the highlights of what you bought, what you incurred in the year 2017. Thank you.
Director Garcia.
Yes, I was glad that he pointed out that our reserve ended in 5.6, whereas our requirement's 3.5. And often we use the reserve in our budgeting process because we're conservative when we're budgeting our revenues and we're being as realistic as possible. And although we may budget with using a reserve to balance, we typically do not utilize the fund from reserve to balance our budget. We come out ahead at the end of the year because the staff's been good. If there is a problem in downturn of tax revenues of decreasing expenses, they do not exceed those costs. And I commend all the department heads and our leadership for maintaining that within each department as well as our finance department.
And the budget comparisons are within this report, and it was very favorable this year of about $4 or $5 million, and half of that was due to the communication system not being finalized in this particular year.
Thank you. There's no further questions amongst the board. Please call the roll.
Jones.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Foley.
Aye.
Davidson.
Aye.
McCabe.
Aye. Resolution is adopted. At this time, we'll consider resolution number R-18-102 and ask the city attorney to read by title.
Resolution R-18-102, a resolution awarding a contract to Christ Engineers, Inc. for certain professional design, engineering services, and administration related to the new switchgear and motor control center at the Ouachita Water Treatment Plant. That concludes your reading. Mayor, if you would, entertain a motion second to adopt and have discussion, if any.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
Director Davidson, seconded by Director Garcia, and Mr. Gary Carnahan, our
Thank you.
city engineer, will provide a staff report.
Thank you, Mayor. We, at our water treatment plant, by the way, we appreciate this rain, don't we? Because we were having, during that dry spell, we were having some really high production days at the water plant. And this, the entire water plant, of course, all the electricity to run the water plant goes through the motor control center and the switchgear, and it was built in 1963, and it's been outside. It was outside, not undercover all these years. And the equipment is out of date, and part of it can't be replaced. They don't make it anymore. You know, technology has changed a lot since 1963. And so it's time for us to replace the motor control center and the switchgear that operate our water treatment plant. Regrettably, that's about a $3.5 million bite, but we have money in our new 2018 water bond that you approved recently to do that. So we want to get busy designing that and get it replaced as soon as possible. And so this is a request that you would approve a engineering contract with Christ Engineers for $298,250 to do that design work. And the electrical engineering is included in their fee. They'll subcontract with Brown Engineers, who does most of the electrical engineering on our plants. So we use a rate and rank process to select Christ Engineers. They've done a lot of good work for us in the past, and we feel very comfortable working with them. We have a couple of pictures of that. It will actually, this is not an exact picture of it, but just the idea that will actually, if we can see the next photo of an example of the motor control panels and so on. I think we have another picture, not that one. But anyway, the point is, we will buy that equipment installed in a building like this. This is an example of what part of that will look like. And it will be shipped here, all put together in a building, pre-wired at the factory, and set in place at the site, and then we'll bring wiring and everything to it, and the controls that go out to the different components in the plant. And our generator, it will be connected to the generator, standby generator at the plant. So we want to get started on this as soon as possible. So I'm asking tonight if you would approve this engineering contract. If you have any questions, maybe I can.
Hearing no questions, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Carnahan. Anybody sign up to speak on this issue? Discussion amongst directors. Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Garcia,
Aye.
Folly,
Aye.
Davidson,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
McCabe.
Aye. Resolution is adopted. Our final resolution of the night is R 18103, and I ask the city attorney to read by title.
Resolution R 18103, a resolution approving the preliminary engineering agreement with Arkansas Department of Transportation in conjunction with awarding a professional services contract to Garver LLC for engineering design services as related to the Highway 7 North Widening Project. That concludes your reading. Mayor, if you would, entertain a motion second to adopt and have discussion, if any.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Director Jones, seconded by
Second.
Director Davidson.
Thank you, Mayor.
Carnahan again.
This is, again, asking if you to approve an engineering contract for $276,708.40 to Garver Engineers. We rate and ranked as usual and selected Garver because of their expertise in this particular field of working with Arkansas RDOT. And the Highway 7-5 project, goes from Gulf of Gorge Road north all the way to the Highway 5-7 junction. And the city has water mains that go from out to past Belvedere, and then we stop there. But our sewer main goes all the way to Fountain Lake School, a large sewer main. So Garver Engineers has looked at this enough to tell us that, well, first of all, I should say that their proposal is to widen the road from 2 lanes and hardly any shoulders to 3 lanes with bike lanes and curb and gutter and sidewalks. So a pretty significant widening, plus a lot of drainage pipes and culverts have to be extended to the creek that runs alongside there. So those utilities will have to be moved outside of that new right-of-way. If they're already outside the existing right-of-way, we won't have to pay for that. But we won't know until we complete this study whether they are. If our utilities are inside the existing right-of-way, we'll have to pay to have them relocated. The engineer can already predict that it's going to be $3.8 million worth of utility relocations just for the water and sewer. But now we need them to do the detailed work to just find out which part of that the city will have to pay for, the proportion of that. So we need to ask you to award this contract so we can find the answer to those questions.
Any questions of Mr. Carnahan?
What is the cost of this contract, Gary?
This is $276,708.
Thank you.
And I should mention, too, that the engineering will also be prorated based on what is the state's responsibility and what is the city's responsibility. So the engineering and construction costs will both be prorated accordingly.
Where does the widening begin?
It actually begins at Fox Pass Cutoff Road.
Okay.
The section from the mill near there back to Gulf of Gorge Road is shown at this time in the plans to just be an overlay all the way back into Whittington Avenue.
Any other questions of Mr. Carnahan? If not, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
No member of the public? Sure. Discussion amongst board members. Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Folly,
Aye.
Davidson,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Garcia,
Aye.
McCabe.
Aye. Resolution is adopted. Our final action item for tonight is to consider ordinance 01826. I need to entertain a motion to suspend the rules and read by title.
So moved.
A motion by Director Garcia, seconded by Director Foley to suspend the rules and read by title only. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion is approved. Council, please read by title.
Ordinance 01826, an ordinance amending ordinance number 6216, establishing rates and charges for the Hot Springs Municipal Water System and for other purposes. That concludes your reading, Mayor. If you would, entertain a motion second to adopt and have discussion.
Motion to adopt. So moved.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded by Director Garcia. Who's taking the lead on this?
Mayor, I'll take this one.
Mr. Burrows will.
Mayor, over the weekend, I had received some calls and comments, and then again yesterday. This is the first month where we've had sprinkler invoices go out or bills go out to our residents, and with the higher usage, people had some sticker shock this particular billing cycle. Received several phone calls, an abnormal amount of phone calls regarding some of their sprinkler costs. So we wanted to review those, and myself, staff, we started looking at some of these higher bills that we were made aware of. And as we drilled down into it, we did find that there were a couple of our rate codes that did not in our chart of rates had an error. So as we started looking at those, we knew that we wanted to address it immediately, so we appreciate you adding this onto your agenda tonight. Staff recommends approval of the revised rate schedule, which only impacts certain sprinkler rates. Minimum monthly, what we refer to as base fees, they're correct and should not be changed. On November 21st of 2017, the board approved Ordinance 6216, which set forth new water rates for bills rendered after January 1st, 2018. The intent of this ordinance was to increase the minimum monthly charges and provide the 3% annual increases on the volumetric charges. The rate schedules were provided for bills rendered between January 1st, 2018 and December 31st, 2018, referred to as Schedule A1 in that particular ordinance. 3 schedules were provided beyond that for subsequent years. Those schedules were A2 through A4, and a final schedule, A5, was provided for year beyond 2021. These schedules were provided by our rate consultant. In a recent review, as I mentioned, of the schedules, it became evident that some of the volumetric charges for the sprinkler meters had been calculated incorrectly. The charge for 1,001 to 5,000 gallons was correct. The base rate up to 1,000 gallons was correct. But the 3 usage categories beyond that, 5 to 10,000 gallons, 10 to 20,000 gallons, and then 20,000 gallons and above, were reflecting a much higher increase than the 3% intended by the board. On our rate schedules, we refer to those as W4, W5, W12, and W13 rate categories. This includes both inside and outside city residents. And again, it's primarily those that have used over any of those that have used over 5,000 gallons of consumption through their irrigation or sprinkler meter. Approval of this ordinance will adjust those rates back to the proper level. This will be retroactive through January 1st of 2018, though I will say there's only been about 238 bills go out up to this point. Many of these have reflected sprinkler rates very recently within the last billing cycle. So even though it's retroactive back to January, there weren't many sprinkler meters that were active above that 5,000 gallon mark prior to the last month or so. Bills for affected customers will also be recalculated, and refunds of credits and or credits will be given for any of those customers that I've just mentioned in that improper billing. We apologize for the inconvenience. I'm glad that this was brought to our attention. I'm glad we were able to catch it in what I consider a very timely manner and be able to bring this to you tonight for corrections. So, Mayor, I'll be glad to answer any questions that the board may have.
So what is your advice for the individual who might have received a bill today?
If they receive their bill today and they have consumption over 5,000.
Correct, yeah, big usage, yeah.
If they're able to call our department, we're going to be putting a game plan. We just learned this afternoon, so our primary focus today, Mayor, was to get this information to you tonight. We'll develop a process in the morning for calculating all of the new bills. It may take a couple of days, so if you received your bill today, you have over 5,000 gallons of usage. We will be contacting you to let you know what that difference is. If you want to hold on to your sprinkler rate this particular month, you'll have a correction on that for next month, and they could potentially wash out. So I would suggest not paying the bill that you received today. If you received it today and you have over 5,000 gallons consumption, let us do the recalculations, and we'll either contact you or you'll see a credit on your statement for next month.
Very good. Thank you. Director Garcia.
If you have bank draft to automatically pay those, is there anything that a customer can do, or someone to contact if that pulled in a lot out of their bank account than expected?
Yes, if they'll contact our utility billing services, one of the issues that I spoke with Randy Outler, our customer service manager today, is we will have somebody there that will be able to help them calculate those. In those cases, Director Garcia, we will provide a refund if need be. However, if they're not on the automated draft, then we can get that credited to their next month bill. But if somebody has had an auto draft that was at a higher amount and they need a refund, they're welcome to call us and we'll take care of it.
Thank you.
Director Foley.
Just as a point of clarification, in the calculation of the total water bill, there's been some discussion that once you hit, for example, I'll just use it as an example, 20,000 gallons, that you're really paying that 20,000 gallon rate for all of the 20,000, and that is not true. Is that correct? You pay for the first 1,000 at its rate until you reach 5,000, then it goes to a different rate, and you pay that increment between 5,000 and 10,000, and so on.
That is correct.
Okay.
You don't pay the over 20,000 or the over 10,000 rate, whatever it may be, whichever category you reach. You're not charged that particular rate until you exceed that amount. Anything below that was charged at the applicable rate for that category. Excuse me, for that category.
I noticed that Gary Carnahan talked about the volume usage recently from the treatment plant. How many people have bumped up to that 10 or 20,000 that have never been there before because of the weather?
I'm not sure that we're able to track how many exceeded that for the first time. We have 1,962 sprinkler meters inside the city limits, and just right under 1,000 outside the city limits. We can see that as that usage takes place, but we don't really have a mechanism to track it from prior years on whether they exceeded or didn't exceed. But we do know that, an average sprinkler meter in the system uses about 11,000 gallons. We're seeing some cases, and I took a representative sample of 8 to 10 accounts today, and one example that I'll give you. As we start talking about this particular year's heat and dry weather, one of the accounts I looked at had a May 2017 usage of 17,000 gallons. It had a May 2018 usage of 70,000 gallons. In June, that same account, in June 2017, it used 41,000 gallons, and in June of 2018, I think it was right at 86,000 gallons. So some of these are quadrupling the volume, some are doubling the volume. It is something, these are discretionary meters. We want to make sure that they're billed appropriately, but in a discretionary use, people have a choice on how they use those particular meters. And of course, as we have hotter, drier days, many are choosing to use the sprinkler systems more often. I got out in a couple of neighborhoods today about 6:15, 6:30, and drove through some of these larger neighborhoods that I knew had quite a few sprinkler meters. And in the neighborhood I was in, about half of the homes in this one particular subdivision had sprinklers that were actively working while I drove through. And about half of those were actually watering a lot of large portions of the pavement. You were seeing a lot of overspray, a lot of water running down the curb. So during these times, these particular type rates and rate structures are intended to conserve water as we move through that process, or as we look at our rate structures, their conservation rates. So, I just encourage all residents to, one, check your timers, make sure that you're watering appropriately. No use in paying for the water if you don't need it. And then really check your sprinkler heads. A lot of those come on early in the morning. Some people may not actually see them. They just know that the ground's wet when they got up, so they know they worked. be sure to have somebody come out and check those, because you can not only reduce the consumption, but also reduce the amount that you're paying for the water service. The same water you use in your tap that you turn on at the kitchen sink is the same water that you're using to water your lawn. We don't have two separate systems, so we're treating everything that we're pushing out into the system, whether that's for your kitchen sink or for your vegetable garden. So hope that answered the question. Kind of a long answer, but we're seeing some, as Mr. Carnahan stated, we're averaging about 18 million gallons a day right now. We've had several days where we had an ongoing multiple days of 19.5. We have exceeded the 20 million gallon mark. We did that middle of June, did that the 2nd of July. And we bumped very close to it on several occasions during that first week of July. We've had a reprieve over the past week. We've had some of these afternoon showers, and it's amazing how even these small showers, you can see the impact that has in the water system. I spoke with someone today that said, hey, we've had 3 days of rain. We were lucky. I got some here, so I haven't watered my grass in 3 days. But I also talked to somebody else on the total opposite side of town, and they hadn't received any rain. So we've had some really weird sporadic showers that have come through this past week. So thank you, Mayor.
Very good. Any other questions for Mr. Burrows? Anyone from the audience that wanted to speak to this issue?
Mayor, I'd like to say something for the benefit of the board in case this question comes up after you leave. First of all, I want to commend Bill and Lance and Doretha for acting on this quickly. They called me this afternoon about 3 o'clock, and this is done. So that's a testament to them. But my concern associated with this change, because this is a reduction in rate, was what effect that this might have on our bonds. As the board's aware, our water and our wastewater bonds are revenue bonds. Our rates are pledged toward the payment of those bonds, and these rates were established in November of 2017. We just issued a bond in April of this year. So my call was to bond counsel at the Friday firm to make sure that this was not going to create a problem with our bonding. The good news is the bond that was issued in April of this year was based upon the revenues of 2017, was not based on projected revenues of 2018, and is limited to the base rates that are charged, the minimum rates, not the additional monthly usage charges. So just wanted the board to have that comfort and for the public to understand that this is not in any way going to put our bonds in jeopardy.
I certainly want to thank you for looking into that, because that would be a action taken tonight that we might not have anticipated an issue with, and you certainly have clarified that there is no issue. So thank you. Any other questions, comments? If not, call the roll, please.
Davidson,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Garcia,
Aye.
Foley,
Aye.
McCabe.
Aye. Ordinance is adopted. This completes the action items on the agenda tonight. We move into Board of Directors' comments. Any comments from directors?
Mr. Mayor, I too would like to thank Bill and Doretha for their prompt attention on this subject. Out of the 238 accounts, I would say that about 200 of them were in my district. And I heard about it.
I may agree with that.
Director Davidson.
Switching gears, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the local chef and barbecue aficionado, Big Mike, but he parks his outdoor cooking thing on Park Avenue every Friday evening. So if you want to get some barbecue, come up there on Fridays. In the summer, he does that all summer long. So it has a big table and a tent and everything, and you can places where you can sit down and have some barbecue.
I just have a comment that now that we're into summer and that, there's certainly a lot of traffic downtown, a lot of people on bikes and a lot of pedestrians, and it's certainly everyone needs to be careful and look both ways, regardless whether you're the pedestrian, the cyclist, or the motorist. Mm-hmm. I had a situation the last 2 Saturdays, and there's 2 bike shops in town, one up on Park Avenue and one up on Whittington Avenue, and I generally park over on the one, near the one at Whittington Avenue, and we do a Saturday morning bike ride there, and we ride out of town past Cutter School and out on Mill Creek. Well, when we come back, we ride down Central Avenue because we got to get back to the bike shop, and we're going past the Bathhouse Row, and when we do that, we're in the right-hand lane. But we got to make a left-hand turn at the fountain. And so it was bumper-to-bumper traffic this Saturday morning when we were coming in, and we have to take our opportunity to move to the left-hand lane at generally the earliest possible moment. So we don't generally do that until we're somewhere around the midway down Bathhouse Row, sometimes after the Arlington Hotel. Well, then in the last 2 Saturdays, I've had 2 individuals pull up alongside me on the right-hand lane and say, use the bike lane. Well, we were in the bike lane or the right-hand lane, but I can't make a left-hand turn from that lane. And we weren't really holding up any traffic because I had a Family Dollar semi-truck in front of me, and he was holding me up. And I couldn't go around him. I just had to kind of puddle along. But so I don't consider it road rage from those individuals. They did roll their window down and say, "Hey, why don't you stay in the right-hand lane?" Well, I'd say I can't. I mean, we're it's almost like the Grey Poupon commercial. Do you have any Grey Poupon? Because the traffic was slow. And I'm saying, I'm turning left at the fountain. I can't turn left from the right-hand lane. So it's just real important for everybody to relax going through downtown. Everybody will get through safely. The cyclists really do know what they're doing, and I'm sure the motorists do as well. But they don't realize that we're turning left, and so the vast majority of us may be turning left, and a number will go right and go up to the Park Avenue bike shop up there. So
A roundabout fixes that.
Pardon?
I said a roundabout fixes that.
Yeah, we'll try that. I'm going to send you on the bike.
I thought that's where you were going with this.
You just keep going around, not knowing when to get off. All right. This should conclude, I guess. Are we done? We are done. I need Director Jones.
I'm ready, Mayor.
Are you ready?
I move that we adjourn for the night, and everybody be safe when you see the bicycles coming through.
Thank you.
Second.
We got a motion. We got a second by Director Garcia. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are approved unanimously to adjourn. Thank you very much. Have a drive safely.